This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Find out. However, we can use a horrific incident like this to remind the American people that only the most elite and folks, even with the most elite and qualified in the cockpit and in the control tower, bad things can happen. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome aboard the Max Afterburner podcast, sponsored, powered, brought to you by the No Fallen Heroes universe. Solo whiz today, so buckle up, folks. We have a lot to talk about. Absolute horror on the Potomac that we're going to debrief. Absolute shit show clown car also around the Potomac with the hearings that are going on. Going to talk through some medicine stuff. Got a lot to cover, so buckle up, folks. It's going to be a good one. Real quick, before I get airborne, Maverick Mind. So, folks, we had a joint venture, and I'll leave it at that. Let's just say No Fallen Heroes has the Maverick Mind products back. They are in stock, so just a quick reminder, morning brief, absolutely fantastic. Wake up. Full of gratitude. Thank God for another day. Get out of bed, wash my face, brush my teeth, take my Maverick Mind. Meditation. 20-minute meditation gets me centered for the day. Thankful that I woke up. Thankful for a roof over my head, beautiful bride and my children, and my mission. And man, then I go to hot yoga. 5 days on, 2 days off. I usually do Monday through Friday and then take the weekend off. 100% natural, 100% legal, right? There's no psilocybin in our Maverick Mind products yet, right? I believe in the good things coming. Psilocybin will be legal on a federal level eventually. It's legal on a state level in Oregon and Colorado, but especially at a microdose level. What's microdose mean? Subperceptual. Right? If you feel something, it was a macrodose. So microdose is subperceptual. Remember all the products. Uncle Sam in Vietnam, when he said, hey, here's a rifle, go kill the yellow man on the other side of the planet. 18-year-old American. And they said, no, I love the yellow man on the other side of the planet. You love somebody you've never met before? Why? Well, I took these mushrooms and I love everybody and I don't want to go to war. Okay, well, those mushrooms are illegal. Here's your rifle. Go kill people. Right? Uncle Sam didn't take the time to go through all sorts of different strains of mushrooms. They said psilocybin illegal. Boom. Guess what? You don't need psilocybin to get the benefits of a psilocybin-like mushroom. So we have a very good blend in our morning brief that is 100% legal. And it's fantastic. So a lot of you loved the Maverick Mind stuff. We had a little bit of an issue, but we got them back. Legal issue. And clearly we have them back. So problem solved. And we have our night duty. Take one of these. I take one of these about an hour before I go to bed. And man, I sleep like a baby. I used to have horrible problems sleeping. Did the medicine work. That hooked me up. But if I have a little bit of space between my medicine experiences, these are a great filler. Again, 5 days on, 1 day off, the night duty, the night trap. Good stuff. Working on our website. Don't know if it'll be up by the time this podcast drops. So do me a favor. Just shoot me an email. Wiz, WHIZ, at nofallenheroes.com, and I'll hook you up. I've already, it seems like once a day I'm going to the post office with a big shipment, send it to Canada. So we can send all around the world. Obviously, you're going to pay up a little bit for the shipping. So it's $59.99 per bottle. And then obviously a little bit for shipping and handling for me having to drive to the post office and deal with that in Boca Raton, which is a absolute nightmare. Anyway, so Maverick Mind, and we are getting our merchandise site up. Also, by the time this podcast drops, hopefully that website is up as well. Got my cool Maverick Mind t-shirt on right now. We got Maverick Mind hats too. Take a look at that hat, man. We got white camo, and we also have dark camo, right? You've probably seen me wear the dark camo hat. This is the white camo hat. These are tight, man. These are awesome. Obviously, our psychedelic fighter pilot with those visions of healing. The merch is lit. So make sure you order some of your Maverick Mind products for your mind, body, and soul, and then some of the merch for your mind, body, and soul. Okay, got that out of the way. Let's go ahead and throttle up and get airborne. The confirmation hearings. What an absolute display of unhinged lunatics in this country. I mean, these liberal white women screaming at the top of their lungs. It's not a good look. It just looks bad. You can't get your message across if you look like a crazy white woman screaming at somebody. Senator Karens. It's just, did they not learn anything that's happened? I get you have to advocate for your constituents and all that type of stuff, but a lot of them simply aren't. Watching Pocahontas, right? Elizabeth Warren, who claims she was American Indian, right? Got a $400,000 a year job at Harvard, no-show job essentially. 1,024th American Indian. I think that was just what a national joke that turned out to be. But that lady ripping into RFK Jr. the other day about big pharma and money, federal election records show that she has taken $5 million from big pharma. I love the idea of NASCARing up our elected representatives. You, Senator, Congressman, have to wear a suit with patches on it from your largest donors, like Ricky Bobby. Wouldn't that be great? Elizabeth Warren wearing a big Pfizer logo on her dress or whatever. I think that's a great idea. Pete Hegseth is now Secretary of Defense. We'll see if Kash Patel gets approved for FBI. It's just so funny to watch the Democrats rip apart former Democrats like RFK Jr. Guy was a Democrat his whole life. Tulsi Gabbard ran for president as a female. I'm so glad we got RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, and you got Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, the crying Air Force pilot. Unbelievable. But the things they are a-changing. Since I last spoke with you, my beautiful bride Suzi and I went to San Antonio. We haven't been to San Antonio since 1993. 1993, October 22nd. My mom and dad pinned these wings of gold on my chest at Naval Air Station, Kingsville, Texas. Became a Naval Aviator that day. My parents were there. My family was there. Suzi's parents were there. Wow, that was a good crowd. Why were they there? Because the next night, we were all driving up to San Antonio from Kingsville, Texas. Because they all knew, Suzi didn't, that I was going to ask for her hand in marriage. So, if you've ever been to San Antonio and the Riverwalk, you know those little boats that go around. This is all before Al Gore invented the internet, man. I remember finally finding the phone number to try and make a reservation for one of those little boats so you could have dinner on it, and that's when everyone's going to do it. And the lady laughed at me. She's like, "Yeah, you needed to make a reservation like a year ago." Click. So anyway, we all go up there, walking around the Riverwalk. I'm like, where am I going to do this? And over one of the little bridges that goes over the Riverwalk, I got down on a knee and asked my beautiful college girlfriend to marry me. And man, it's what a ride. 30, man, don't make me do the math. Over 3 decades later, Suzi and I were back in San Antonio. We went to that bridge and took a picture. We were in San Antonio for our oldest son's graduation from BMT, Basic Military Training for the United States Air Force. So proud of my boy. There's no way in hell as a 24-year-old kid getting engaged on the Riverwalk in San Antonio. I could have ever imagined being back there for my oldest son's graduation, especially for the Air Force. I guess I dropped him on his head when he was a kid. No, because he's got a path, man. He's in the Florida Air National Guard. They're getting rid of their F-15s. They got rid of their F-15s. They're transitioning to F-35s. They're going to need some young, fresh pilots since the old guys ain't going to make that transition. So he said, you know what? I'm going to enlist. I'm going to get in the unit, get in the fighter wing, and It's kind of like rushing the Blue Angels. You got to show up, khaki pants, polo shirt, go get them coffee, and, you need to be seen. And the Air Guard's like a company, man. When I was a young lieutenant in VFA 94, the mighty Shrikes out in Lemoore, California, we did a 2-week det up to Portland, where we fought the F-15s out of Portland. What a great 2 weeks of my life. I was the OIC, the officer in charge of that whole det. I remember going to the F-15 squadron bar one day, and it was packed. And it was packed full of all the enlisted troops, too. And, I was talking to the skipper, and this young airman female, walked up to the commanding officer and said, "Hey, Steve, do you need a beer?" I'm like, wow. And the guy could tell I was, a little, taken aback. He's like, "Yeah, man, we're a family. We're not even really in the military, technically. We're in the Air National Guard." So anyway, we were so proud of our son. It was so cold in Texas. That winter blast that hit everybody a couple weeks ago, man, holy crap. They canceled the run. They were supposed to, run by and singing all their songs and stuff like that. It was too cold. I mean, grandparents were there and stuff like that. And when the Air Force says, "Hey, man, it's too cold," it was cold. So it was great. So he's up in Virginia now in his next school, and he should be home in a month. He's going to finish getting his pilot's licenses and rush in the Air Guard. So God bless you, son. We love you. We are very, very proud of you. So that happened since we've last spoken, and that's awesome. What also happened a couple days ago, Suzi and I and Katerina went to the Boca Resort and had dinner with Deborah Mash. Google that. You can stop your car right now or stop the podcast, pause it. Google her. Deborah Mash, as in unit, M-A-S-H. When I was getting winged in 1993 in Kingsville, Texas, Dr. Mash, FSU, Harvard, I believe, and down here at University of Miami, as a professor, she started working with Ibogaine. She is the queen of Ibogaine. I've been dying to meet this lady for the past 4 years, and we had dinner with her the other night, and it could not have been more. It was definitely a God moment. Might be investing in her company called Demorex. They have phase 1 studies on AUD, alcohol use disorder, with Ibogaine. And she's like, "Wiz, got to sign an NDA, but you'll be blown away at the results." So, and asked her to join the No Fallen Heroes Foundation advisory board. She said she would be honored. So I would love to formally welcome aboard our newest advisory board member to the foundation, Dr. Deborah Mash, the Ibogaine queen. Google her name. She's been in the Ibogaine space for a long time. Could you imagine being able to use neuro-Ibogaine, right? Ibogaine, there's two, and it's so funny because I gave her my first Ibogaine experience debrief in person. And as a doctor of this, here's what's funny. She's the Ibogaine queen. Have you ever done Ibogaine, doctor? Nope. Can't. I mean, I can, but I won't. Maybe when I retire, because I have to be clinical about this. I'm like, wow. She's done psilocybin. She's done other psychedelics to heal and to have an experience. But she's like, nope, I will not do Ibogaine. I can't. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And good on you for kind of sacrificing. She's like, I hear these stories, but I can't. I want to be clinical and data driven. As I've told many of you before, the medicine space is a bridge. On one side of the bridge, me, veterans, first responders, or family members telling you these incredible stories of healing. You've heard my story. If you haven't, episode 7 is your next listen. Can't watch it because we didn't have cameras in the studio back then. It's a listen. It's my first Ibogaine experience. Okay. Transformational. I had to learn a new SAT word when I got home, right? When you can't put something into words, it's called ineffable. Maybe I would have gotten higher SAT score if I had done that. So it's just so hard. So many people who sat with Ibogaine are like, I just can't even put into words, right? We have to label things as a human. It was all feeling, right? So on one side of the bridge is all of those anecdotal stories of healing, transformational, saved my life, changed my life, destroyed alcohol, destroyed heroin, destroyed caffeine, destroyed pornography. The other half, the other side of the bridge, Dr. Mash, Dr. Martine, the ladies and the gentlemen in the lab coats and the beakers trying to reach each other. Anecdotal stories, data. So I think Dr. Mash, if I remember, invited me. I might be on Demerex's advisory board because it is transformational. And could you imagine coming up with something that would break alcohol addiction in this country? For all the new folks, Ibogaine destroyed alcohol in my life. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like a failure because I talked to my medicine brothers, Marcus Luttrell, JT, Robert Gallery, JJ. The four of them have not touched a drop of alcohol in 4 years. Me, I feel like a failure. I'm like, I have a glass of wine every once in a while with my steak or my pasta. Now, I'm not going to say I feel like a failure. It destroyed alcohol in my life because old me, if I had a glass of wine with my pasta or my steak, it wasn't a glass of wine. It was a bottle, 2, maybe even 3. Destroyed that. Okay. But I can tell you up to 8 months, 9 to a year after I sat with Ibogaine, smelling alcohol, seeing a bottle of alcohol made me dry heave. It made me physically ill. Okay. So if Dr. Mash and the folks at Demerex are working on something to help people with that, it's awesome. Oh, that's what I was going to say. That's called Ibogaine. Ibogaine. Ibogaine and Ibogaine together is kind of the two halves of my Ibogaine experience. The visual phase. You get a tour of literally everything. God, source, truth, divine, universe, whatever word you choose. I choose to use the word God. Says, look at this. Isn't this incredible? Look at you. You're a part of this. Yeah, this is all incredible. So are you. And you are one with all of this. Then it transitions into a you experience with God, source, truth, divine, universe. So they're actually taking, you can, and you if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know that I'm a little torn with this. Taking the psychedelic out of psychedelics. But if there are people who are like, you know what, man, I just had zero interest in a 12 to 14 hour ass kicking. But I got a drinking problem. And I can take this Ibogaine and it will destroy alcohol in my life. Single use, ladies and gentlemen. I will remind you of the study. 85% of violent heroin addicts, like on death's door, up to 3 years after a single dose of Ibogaine, a single Ibogaine experience, never touched heroin again. Or I can't say that. They stopped the study after 3 years. If you start using heroin again after not using it for 3 years, it wasn't the Ibogaine. The Ibogaine gave you your 3. They're like, well, okay, we can end the study. It's been 3 years and 85% of these people have never even looked at the stuff again. So we're pretty certain that Ibogaine is pretty awesome. Okay, so that was cool. First of all, meeting her, asking her to be on our advisory board, and then her briefing us on Demerex and what they're doing with Ibogaine. It's just, she's been doing this as long as I flew for she's been doing this since I got my wings, folks, in Ibogaine. So we're going to do a Top Gun Options brief, because she's opening up the doors to Demerex, I believe, for potential investors. So I'm going to invest, and I'm going to put the ladder down to my fellow Top Gun Options members. Cody, president, founder of Healing Realty Trust, came and gave an incredible update with what's going on with HRT, Healing Realty Trust. And he also opened up the doors to investors to get to the 100 investor level. Think we're closed. I think Cody and Daniel and Joe and Zed, I think we're good. But if you're hearing this and you're interested in investing in HRT, Healing Realty Trust, you have to be an accredited investor. What's that mean? I think it's $1 million in liquid and $200,000 a year in income. If you are an accredited investor, shoot me an email, Wiz, W-H-I-Z, at nofallenheroes.com, and I can introduce you to Cody. So a lot of good stuff going on. I would love to see RFK Jr. confirmed. Why? Pro psychedelics. I don't agree with them on a lot of other stuff, folks, but am I a single issue voter? When it comes to 22 to 44 veterans checking out every day, a mass shooting in this country every day in the veteran community, yeah, I can put aside some of my differences with RFK. The guy's pro psychedelics. Vice President J.D. Vance, you're never a former Marine. I think he's the first vice president of our country as a Marine. Pro psychedelics. He was on Joe Rogan before the election. Joe Rogan gave him a good lecture. Joe gave him a good brief. And to his credit, then Senator was like, I just didn't know about this. Why aren't we doing this then? Boom. So he at least was very open to it as Joe gave him a good psychedelic brief. And then obviously the new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was on the Sean Ryan podcast. Sean Ryan did Ibogaine. Sean Ryan did 5-MeO-DMT, same place I did. Saved and changed his life. And Secretary of Defense Hegseth said, why aren't we doing this for veterans? So, lot of positive things going on. You know, back in August, when the FDA advisory panel with ties to Big Pharma didn't recommend approval for MDMA for therapeutic use, I called it what? It was an Apollo 13 movement. It was a successful failure. Yeah, it failed, but we got a lot of lessons out of that. All the other companies, MindMed, Atai, Cybin, Compass, looked at that train wreck and said, okay, we will tighten up every one of those issues, and that won't happen to us. I'm telling you, though, folks, if you watch the RFK confirmation hearings, the tentacles of Big Pharma run deep. I will remind you, there is no money in healing. None. Could you imagine being the CEO of Pfizer like, wait a minute, some company called Demorex is coming up with a single dose that could potentially cure AUD, alcohol use disorder? Holy shit. You all know me, or you should know me. I'm torn at that. I absolutely love this. I want to heal people. AUD, alcohol is poison, folks. It'll kill you. I want people healed. Now, guess what? I'm torn because I'm also an investor, right? I would love for, I can, you ever see the movie Wolf of Wall Street or the movie Wall Street with Gordon Gekko, right? As an investor, I would rather, so Demorex, all of these companies, whether it's Healing Realty Trust or Demorex, sadly, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, or some of these big REITs are probably going to swoop in with a size 12 checkbook, stroke one, and scoop it all up. It would really suck if these big pharma companies went in, scooped these things up, with patents and put them on the shelf. I will be here for that. I don't give a shit about the money at that point. I'm clearly joking about being Gordon Gekko. I will call that shit out, and I will remind you that healing is free. Ibogaine, psilocybin, 5-MeO-DMT, DMT, mescaline, right? San Pedro, out in Mexico and Arizona, New Mexico. Free. God put things on this planet for us to heal. As humans evolved and cancers and nut allergies and weird shit started springing up, thank you for Big Pharma. My mom's a stage 4 non-smoking lung cancer survivor. Thank you, Big Pharma, for that stuff. But depression, anxiety, PTSD, they do not want you healed. You're talking to a dude that took Lexapro, Wellbutrin, lithium. Are you bipolar? No, I'm not fine. Well, let me bomb your thyroid with this. God, it's a horror. I'll share something personal with you. One of them, which one? I don't even know which one. Guy threw down my throat. Came back to the next appointment. I'm like, yeah, I guess I feel okay, but guess what? Like downstairs ain't really working too well. Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you that's a side effect? I'm like, are you fucking stupid? I have depression. You're giving me a medication for depression that takes away some of the manhood? Are you, what the fuck? Got rid of that medication. So, pharma has its place. But in some of these things, it absolutely is the devil. So, I believe in the good things coming. I absolutely believe in the good things coming. I've seen the good things. I'm part of the good things. And if you're listening to this, you are too. If you're new to here, go to our YouTube channel, No Fallen Heroes. Get up to speed. Start watching our podcast. Max Afterburner is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeart, all the, wherever cool kids listen to podcasts, you can listen to this. Get up to speed. Go back to one, man, and get up to speed. You will be blown away by the stories of healing that you will hear. From elite military folks to first responders to family members, you will get up to speed. Okay, now let's shift to the disaster on the Potomac, the massacre on the Potomac. The other night, after watching the Panthers win, boom, breaking news. And X, thank God for Elon Musk, man. I knew before it was on X immediately. People were posting about this before the mainstream media ever even knew what happened. And the breaking news and the intel is posted on X before they even get up to speed. What an absolute horror. Regional jet, American Airlines, Wichita. Skaters on board, children, mothers, fathers, couple young guys in the front. The right seater, the first officer, just got his captain upgrade, was putting on captain. I mean, coming in for landing. Couple 100 feet. Gear down, flaps are down. We're cleared to land. What time is the van picking us up to take us to the hotel? They don't even know they're dead. Neither does the Army crew. Now, the negative about X are the conspiracy theories. New video out today and my phone's been blowing up, folks. I was on Megyn Kelly. I was on Fox with John and Sandra yesterday, on with Greta Van Susteren, Elizabeth Vargas. Tomorrow morning at 6:30, I have a hit on Fox and Friends. My phone's been blowing up. Why? Flew military, flew airlines. But man, the conspiracy theories. Well, Wiz, look at some of the people that I appeared on, their producers reached back out like, hey, look at the new video. It looks as they're flying directly to it. Could this be intentional and shit like that? Man, if you think two Army aviators and the crew chief in the back intentionally flew their helo into that RJ, you're a fucking idiot. And I hope that offends you if you believe that. Let's dig into this mishap. Route 4, or whatever it was called. The helo coming. Folks, Washington, D.C. is the Battle of Britain. It's controlled chaos. There's VIP helicopters. There's Marine One. There's, Reagan, Dulles, Baltimore, BWI. There's a shitload of stuff going on in D.C., folks. Medical helicopters, police helicopters, dignitaries. I mean, controlled chaos is great as long as it's controlled. You might look at the flight deck of an aircraft carrier as, oh my God, that's an absolute chaos. It is. It's controlled. When everybody is doing what they're supposed to do, everything's fine. I've been involved in aviation mishaps boards before. It's called the Swiss cheese, right? You look at a block of Swiss cheese. Like to get something through that, all the holes would have to line up. It's very tough. Or they call it a chain, right? A mishap is a chain. Here's the mishap. Here's all the links in that chain that led to that. You pull one of the links out, mishap doesn't happen. Let's step through the links in the chain. Aircraft was ordered to land on runway, on the southern runway. Okay. That helo was already flying. It was on a night vision goggle training mission, apparently, folks. Okay. NVG, night vision goggle. We'll get to that in a little bit. You can see the path down the Potomac. The helo route that they were on has a maximum altitude of 200 feet. Remember that. And that helo route, you're supposed to snug the coastline, the eastern shore of the Potomac River. Stay over there. You stay below 200 feet and over on the eastern side of the Potomac. If they were doing that, the Army helicopter crew, they would be alive today, along with the passengers and the crew in the RJ. They didn't do that. Let's keep going. So they're flying down there. Last minute approach or tower says, hey, American Airlines, can you swap around and do the northern runway, runway 33? Yeah, we can do that. Motivated RJ crew. 2 young guys hoping to make it up to the major airlines, right? They're regional jet pilots, smaller jets. Just about every RJ pilot on the planet wants to be what? At FedEx or UPS or Delta. At the main line, it's called, right? They're in a regional. Main line is up here. So as they descend and do what's called a base, kind of a dog leg, they're putting their gear down, they're putting their flaps down, they're doing their pre-landing checks. They are over the Potomac and turn in a left-hand kind of descending turn for the runway. Okay. As this is happening, a controller says, Army helicopter going south, RJ coming north. Let me give a traffic call. Now, today, I've seen reports, the White House confirmed it, the tower was understaffed. And it sounds like the ATC supervisor that night let somebody go home early. Again, I saw all this stuff. White House confirmed they were understaffed, but I also saw a report, don't know if it's confirmed, that, hey man, it's a little slow, you can split. So, this controller was working 2 jobs. Okay? The landing traffic and taking off traffic and the helo traffic. Again, if everybody does their jobs, mishaps don't happen. It's not an accident, by the way. It's a mishap. So another issue is they're talking on 2 different types of frequencies. UHF, military aircraft, many of them use UHF, ultra high frequency, right? Civilians talk on VHF. So on the UHF radio, the controller says, hey, you have traffic. There's an RJ. Army helo dude. Flown. Now let's get into the Army crew real quick. Female pilot it was called a gold top helo. 860. The gold top is they fly VIPs. And this, I get what the media was doing, but this smacked me in the face the other night. It's usually flying VIPs. Thankfully, there were no VIPs on board. Shut the fuck up. There were 3 VIPs on board. That was my initial reaction. Now I get it. They meant not a dignitary or something like that there, but man, think before you post. Think before you shoot. Think before you open your mouth. Think before you type. There were 3 VIPs on that airplane. A female Army pilot with 500 hours. Now, people are like, that's a lot of time. Yeah. The pilot in command, the instructor on this mission, and I hate having to even talk like this, white male, 1,000 hours. That's a lot of time in a helicopter for a helo. Trust me. When I got 1,000 hours in a Hornet, it was a big deal. You put a patch on your shoulder. So the instructor, very experienced. The female, mid-experience. Don't know if that played any impact. We'll find out. Then there's a crew chief in the back, young guy. The pilot in command, the instructor pilot, was a former Navy enlisted guy. I've seen pictures because I saw him in his chief warrant officer uniform, and he had Navy ribbons. I'm like, he's a former Navy guy who ended up flying helos for the Army. Okay? So here is what happened. When the controller gave them a traffic call, the Army crew, hey, do you see this RJ? They said, yeah. We got him. Traffic in sight. The controller, when they hear, yeah, I got traffic in sight, put a check mark right there. The controller has a mental check mark that says, okay, those two are deconflicted. Let me move on to something else. There's other shit going on. Right? That's human nature. Once the pilot says, yeah, I got that traffic in sight. Okay, good. Don't have to worry about you two over here. Let me go focus on something else. Unfortunately, clearly, they had the wrong aircraft in sight, the wrong RJ. You can see in the video, there's actually one taken off. It looks like the Battle of Britain around D.C., folks. There's a lot of lights going on. Let's get to the NVGs real quick, because the Secretary of Defense said they were wearing NVGs. I would be stunned. The only way we're going to find out if they were actually wearing NVGs when the aircraft collided is if they pull up the body, and I hate talking like this, but if they pull up the bodies and the NVGs are actually down and in position, not up. Why? I've flown hundreds of hours on night vision goggles. It's nearly physically impossible to wear NVGs around that much light. Folks, with these NVGs, somebody lights a cigarette miles away, you'll see it on the goggles, man. These things are insane. And you don't have depth perception. I've been over southern Iraq on the NVGs, and I've seen, in southern Iraq, I've seen the Air Force guys in northern Iraq flying their combat air patrol. You can see forever. So the light of the city would wash the goggles out. And as the RJ made its turn towards the north, you ever see an airliner come in for landing at night? They look like the Battlestar Galactica, folks. It's full of lights. If they had the goggles on, man, and those landing lights of the RJ blasted their goggles, they ain't seeing anything. So I'd be stunned if they were wearing goggles at the time of the mishap. I just, can it happen? Sure. Now, they were in the middle of the channel, completely out of position. I already told you they were supposed to be hugging the eastern side of the Potomac. They weren't. They were off course. And they had the wrong aircraft in sight. The last altitude reported by the RJ before it plunged was 375 feet. I already told you the max altitude of that route 4, is 200 feet. So they were clearly a minimum of 150 feet, maybe 200 feet off altitude. Are you seeing the links in the chain? Off course, off altitude. Speculating here. Did they say, yeah, okay, I have the traffic in sight, and go, well, that traffic's all the way over there. That's not an issue. Let's climb up a little bit and kind of cheat to the middle of the channel for whatever reason. But people, hey, they look at this new video. They fly right into it. Folks, that's two airplanes meeting at the same piece of sky. Can it happen? Yeah, it just fucking did, man. I will also tell you, in a multi-crewed aircraft in the front of that helo, they could have both been heads down, right? First of all, helos have autopilots, folks. Could they have been troubleshooting something? Hey, you know what? We're both looking at this gauge, this display, this warning. Hey, I'm trying to type something in and it's not, I'm trying to hit enter, it ain't entering. All right, let me look at it. They could both be heads down, folks, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 that crashed down here in the Everglades. Google that mishap. Three very experienced pilots in the front seat of this huge airliner. A landing gear light was burnt out. A 10-cent light bulb. All three of them were trying to pull the light bulb out and doing all sorts of stuff. You know what happened? The first officer accidentally hit the control yoke. They were on autopilot with his shoulder, like he was trying to, get in there and hit, grab this 10-cent light bulb. He hit it with his elbow. Autopilot disconnected. They entered a gentle descent until one of them came up for air at about 100 feet and said, whoa, what's going on? Boom. Into the Everglades. They flew a perfectly good airplane into the ground because all three dudes in that cockpit were looking at a light bulb. There's three people in that helo, 2 dudes and a lady. So please stop with the, look at this video, Wiz. They flew right into the helo on purpose. What type of fucking conspiracy nut are you? How are you listening to this podcast through the tinfoil? And do you know that they were flying a mission the entire time? You can see the whole track of what they're doing. They were doing a night vision goggle training exercise. No, the Pentamerate and the Knights of the Templar have a thing at the end of the runway, and this happened and that happened. Man, you sully the reputation of these Army aviators and air crewmen, and it's gross. Stop. God bless their souls. Those 3 Army personnel woke up that morning and put on their flight suit and their boots and were looking forward to that mission that night. They got up and they were serving their country. How dare you imply otherwise? It's just, I get it. There are crazy people in the world, but, Anyway, so off altitude, way above. They were almost 100% off altitude. They were potentially double the max altitude they were supposed to be at. Failure. They called the wrong aircraft in sight. Failure. They were in the middle of the channel. Failure. Air traffic controlman. Now, I've seen the radar tapes, folks, and maybe you have too. There's the American Airlines dot. There's the helicopter dot on a scope, marching right towards each other. Controller fail. Controller. Pat 25, that's the call sign of the helicopter. Pat 25, confirm you have RJ traffic on your nose, co-altitude. Acknowledge. No, we're going to dive and descend. Had the controller been watching those 2 targets converge? I've never been to air traffic controller school. I'm pretty damn sure day 1 of ATC school, it says, if you see 2 targets, co-altitude, heading towards each other, say something. But again, understaffed, and he heard the pilot of the Army helo say, traffic in sight. Didn't look back. Absolute horror. Do you see the chains that I am connecting together? Now, to address the other massive elephant in the room, DEI. Did it have anything to do with this? I have no idea. And let me just say, there's 2 schools of people, aviators. There's a school who says, Wiz, you should not go on TV and talk about any of this stuff. Let's wait for the mishap report to come out. And I think those people are completely stupid. Why? This is aviation. Aviation is a self-cleaning oven. You're going to wait for 6 months to a year and a half to figure out why all these people are dead. There are flights taking off and landing as I'm rambling through this sentence right now. It's Occam's razor. The most reasonable or likely thing to happen probably happened. So shut up with the let's wait for the mishap report. In my 3 decades, close to 4 decades in aviation. I've never been that. The good pilots I know don't. Anytime there was a fighter crash, we were in the ready room immediately going, how could this have happened? What do you think happened? Why? We don't want to die. So stop with I'll wait for the mishap report. Good for you. I won't. And I'm glad that the president, the secretary of defense, the FAA, a lot of other smart people won't. It's so stupid to me. It makes my skin crawl. What are you doing? Speculating. Trying to help save lives? If I was still an airline pilot right now, I'd be like, dude, what the fuck? How did that happen? And I'm flying into DC. How do I stay alive? So you people, shut it. You can sit there in silence if you want to. I will not. Let's go back. It is an absolute fact that the previous administration and the Obama administration have prioritized DEI over qualified people. I know several white, male, air traffic control veterans. These guys worked on carrier. I know overqualified individuals who are, unfortunately, right, white males who have for years not gotten a phone call from the FAA. So, 2 things can be true. This mishap happened and the FAA sucks. To the people who are like, how dare you use this type of thing to talk about that? How dare you? Back at you. This is exactly the time to shine the light on the fact that in the front of an airliner, in the front of a helicopter, in the single seat of an F-18 Hornet, it is an absolute must to have qualified, overqualified individuals and in the control tower, period. Have you seen the headlines? Go look at my social media, man. DEI prioritizes folks with mental disorders. I'm not making this shit up. Google it. The FAA was prioritizing people with actual mental conditions. They're underrepresented in the FAA. Good. This is a disgrace. So we can do multiple things, folks, like Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the House, like how the bodies aren't even out of the Potomac and Trump's politicizing this. Hey, bro, if your side hadn't prioritized this type of stuff, maybe things would be different. Don't know if it had an impact in this mishap. We will find out. However, we can use a horrific incident like this to remind the American people that only the most elite and folks, even with the most elite and qualified in the cockpit and in the control tower, bad things can happen. Right? But would you rather have that, the most qualified, the most overqualified people, or unqualified people? Trust me, when I present it like that to the flying public, 99.9% of them will say, I'll take the qualified or overqualified in the cockpit and the control tower, please. The previous administration has failed miserably. Don't even get me started about DEI in the military. It gets people killed. It's and the times they are changing, right? So we can talk about multiple things. We can talk about the horror of the mishap, and I think I did a pretty damn good job of stepping you through all the links in the chain. If you had taken any of those links out, the mishap doesn't happen. Controller, hey, Pat 25, you have traffic on your nose, man. Either descend or come left immediately. Mishap doesn't happen. Army crew stays below 200 feet, stays to the eastern side of the Potomac. Mishap doesn't happen. But we can also talk about we need the most qualified, overqualified individuals in the cockpit and in the control tower, period. Enough of the bullshit. I don't care about your feelings. feelings get people killed. One more time, I'll remind you, aviation is a self-cleaning oven, and I mean that. Day one of flight school in Pensacola, as a young naval aviator, I remember one of my instructors telling me, Wiz, everybody is trying to kill you, including you. Keep your head on a swivel. Another thing I learned on day one of flight school at Naval Air Station Pensacola is don't hit anything in the air or on the ground. ANC. Aviate, navigate, communicate. In that order. If there's something wrong with the plane, what do? You aviate. You fly the plane first. Do I tell people? No, not yet. Do I care about where I'm supposed to be heading? No. What part of aviate, navigate, communicate are you not understanding? If something's happening, fly the plane. Don't hit anything. Okay? I settled everything down. Now navigate. All right, I need to be going this way to an emergency field. Perfect. Plane's flying. You know where you're going. Now what can you do? I can tell people about it. I can communicate. When aviators get those things out of order, people die. That's why I don't know what was going on in the front of that helo. It's very tough for me to believe that there was 4 sets of eyes, maybe even 6, if the crew chief was in between the 2 pilots looking out the front. It's very hard for me to believe. Let's say the crew chief was just in the back looking out the side window. That 2 Army helo pilots who both had their eyes out of the cockpit miss a regional jet turning in front of them. That leads me to believe, just like Eastern Airlines Flight 401, that you can Google and watch the video on, that they most likely were heads down. Okay? One more time. Please knock it off with the, they intentionally kamikazed into this airliner. It's just, did you not see the news reports that the day before there was a near miss, a near midair with the helo, and I think the jet the day before went around. Like, whoa, we're going around. So please stop with the conspiracy theories. Okay, so that's my take on that. I'm going to get this posted because like I said, my phone's been blowing up asking me for my take on this stuff. I have a fraternity brother of mine from back in the day. He was a captain. He's an 05, 06. A captain in the Coast Guard, retired, who flew HH-60s and flew that route for a couple times. And yeah, he saw some of my media hits and he's like, dude, you nailed it, And I'm not a helo dude. I'm an aviator. You don't have to be necessarily a pure helo dude to figure out what happened in this case. But to the partisans, whether it's the president or the Democrats on the other side, I always would love for people to lower the temperature. Trump's Trump, man. You love him or you hate him. He doesn't necessarily have the best delivery at times, but when it comes to life and death, the best delivery isn't necessarily what's required. Truth is what's required. I got to remind you, folks, and great Dr. Martin Luther King had an incredible saying, right? Maybe one day in this country we will judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Can we get there? My God, man. I don't care what your color is, what your sex is, what you do behind closed doors. It matters not to me. I care that you're qualified to be doing what you're doing. Folks, God put all of us on this planet with different skill sets, different abilities, you should end up where you're supposed to end up. I have absolute faith in that. Period. And I don't even want to get started about DEI potentially in medical schools. Oh my God, do you really want somebody who's not qualified performing brain surgery on you? It's just, hopefully we're coming back from the edge. Again, I love the movie Caddyshack, right? Judd Smales. The world needs ditch diggers too, Billy or Jimmy, whatever his name was. Not everybody can be a Navy fighter pilot, man. I don't know how the hell I lucked into it, but it makes zero sense to me that we're putting people into positions that can ultimately kill them or get other people killed. Those days are, I think, over with. So, God bless. It's just a horror. Those kids and the ice skaters and the Army crew. It's just it's a horror, folks. It's none of those. And just imagine being on the airliner. You're coming in for landing. It's a long flight. Looking at your phone, wondering how long it's going to take to get your bags, order an Uber. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's a horror, folks. God bless their souls who transitioned. They're with us now. They're on this podcast. They're with their families. They're one with God. I absolutely believe all of that. And they are eternally in a state of grace until we join them. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It is. Heaven is not a place. It's a state. Gospel of Thomas. Jesus. Well, if heaven's up in the sky, the birds will beat us there. And if it's in the sea, the fish will beat you there. The kingdom of heaven is within you. That was one of the biggest gifts of the medicine to me, was being able to realize that source, divine, God, truth, the universe, you can just close your eyes and channel into that. A great director called it the Force, right? It's so funny with me watching the Star Wars and stuff like that. Again, very somber, very sad about that mishap. The only silver lining of that mishap, and if you can find one, it is this. After a mishap, we have a mishap board that figures out exactly what happened and why it should never happen again, because we will implement these procedures. But after looking at everything, there might be something that pops up. You know what, Wiz? In the last couple seconds of flight, they got a warning light. They were probably both heads down. All right, now we know a little bit more exact stuff. We'll find that out. But even if that happened, right? They got a caution in the cockpit. They both were looking and they were troubleshooting, or, they were looking at their checklist. Even that's a failure, right? In that type of situation, there is somebody who is the flying pilot who says, all right, I got the controls and I'm going to keep us from hitting things. You read. Almost never is it acceptable for two people to be like, okay, let's both jump into the checklist here. So I'm speculating. But what I'm getting at is the good in all of this is we're going to learn what happened and how to prevent it from ever happening again. Sadly, it sounds like this one is one of those mishaps that might end with, if established procedures had been followed, you can't make any more technology, folks. The radar scope showed them heading at each other. There's people. The guy said traffic in sight. Not going to relitigate everything. What I'm getting at is this might be one of those where they just say, you know what? If they had do your job. Do your job. I don't see any radical stuff coming out with new technology or new directives. And usually after something like this, we get a knee-jerk reaction, which we've already seen. Helicopters are now prohibited from... Okay, here we go. Now it's going to, it's like the TSA being formed after 9/11. What an absolutely stupid idea. I usually don't like knee-jerk reactions, but if the helos can find another route that takes them out of the approach and departure corridor, great. But again, if they were flying below 200 feet where they were supposed to be, this isn't an issue. So anyway, folks, Solo Whiz. I know Suzi's coming back or coming up soon with some guests, so I'm going to be inviting some more guests. Dr. Mash, Google her, look her up. She's going to be driving up from the University of Miami here to Boca to join me in the studio for a podcast. Again, if you're interested in your Maverick Mind, your morning brief, microdosing, or your night trap to help you get an incredible night's sleep, or some really cool Maverick Mind merch, make sure you shoot me an email, Wiz, W-H-I-Z, at topgunoptions.com. Or if you're interested in, I can always connect you with Dr. Mash if you want to potentially invest in Demorex, or Cody Chandraw if you want to invest in Healing Realty Trust. This is the way, folks. Make America healthy again. The next 4 years, we will see an explosion in healing, in psychedelics, and all of this stuff. And if you want to be on the leading edge of it, like we are, shoot me an email. Okay? Awesome. I'll talk to you again before the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Yeah, I probably will. Have a great rest of your day. Happy hunting. Make sure you're hedged. Fights on. Namaste. And Basi Basi. Whiz out.